So it's Bernardette Egan. I'm a research fellow in the Food, Consumer Behaviour and Health Research Centre at the University of Surrey in the United Kingdom. I think consumers do understand and make a link between nutrition and what children eat. They tend to talk about it in terms of effects on attention and concentration. So this is what we found parents spoke about. And quite often those effects are seen through changes in mood and behaviour. So parents and teachers don't speak in very scientific terms about mental performance, but they do recognise the effects. And what they seem to do is make a very clear distinction between good foods and bad foods, and the effects these have on children's mental performance. So good foods they talk about in sort of very general terms, so children having a healthy balanced diet, having fruit, having vegetables. They're very specific about the bad foods, so they recognise clearly sugary foods, fizzy drinks, what they call junk food, have a bad effect on their children. And quite often that will be sort of manifested in behaviour changes. So children have too much sugar, they become hyperactive, and this is how they see the effect. Right, well in Entrevista, in our work, we did two main studies. First of all, we conducted a number of interviews with parents and teachers in 4 countries. So we did it in England, Spain, Germany and Hungary. And based on those interviews, we got some in-depth knowledge of how parents talk about mental performance. Because as a term, it's not instinctive, I think, for parents, my child's mental performance. So we wanted to see how they conceptualise that. And then based on those interviews, we developed a large survey in which we surveyed 1,600 parents and 400 teachers. And from that, we were able to ask them questions about their understanding of the effects of diet and mental performance using language that they could understand. And that's sort of the basis of the work we did. I think in communicating messages to consumers, and here I think we're talking mainly about parents, teachers, possibly health professionals, we have to look in the broader context of health and well-being. Because when we spoke to parents about their food choices, what influences the food they give children, they didn't specifically rate effects on mental performance, but what they did rate highly was the healthiness of foods. So I think we need to frame these messages in a broader context of health and well-being. When we asked parents about what influences their decision, what were the main influences, they actually said it was their own common sense and experience. And then after that it was family, but they did mention health professionals. So I think health professionals have quite a key role. And what was interesting was parents talked about mental performance, the effects of diet on mental performance, as immediate effects. So they didn't seem to think about long-term effects. So I think really targeting early nutrition for toddlers, for example, and children, and I think health professionals could have a big role to play in that. But I think what we do need to consider is that it's important to know how people think about things, and it's quite often not sufficient just to provide people with information. You need to know how they're going to receive that information. But we did find parents generally and teachers were quite sceptical about advertising and retail, the messages they're giving them. So I think we need trusted sources, but we also need to give clear and consistent messages, because this was raised. Parents were saying, one day this is good for you, the next day this is bad for you. So we need very clear messages in language they understand.